Hello, Motorrad World fans, and welcome to this live episode of Talking MotoGP. We're going to be talking all the action, everything that took place over the past weekend. Red Bull Ring in Austria, one of the greatest MotoGPs you'll ever go to if you are lucky to go to. And if you're thinking about going to a MotoGP race and wondering which one to go to, Red Bull Ring is definitely on the top of the tree. Of mine, of all the races I went to last year, just the atmosphere where the track is, the track facilities, the vibe, of course, the fact that they idolize Brad Binder down there also helps. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting to talk about the Red Bull Ring. Flynn Faraday, BB33, of course, Daryl Bryce. Good evening, Rob. Hope you and the family are all great. We're all brilliant. Thank you. Hope all is well your side, Daryl. You forgot to mention that our Brad is definitely not moving anywhere for the next 3 years. KTM, no, they have the best in the world. We'll definitely be talking about that. And what an amazing achievement it is for a little South African boy from Krugersdorp to be one of the best MotoGP riders, certainly of the current era, but probably ever. And how a massive corporation like the KTM group, let's not forget it's KTM, Gas, WP Suspension, CF Moto, Husqvarna, all that, and they literally have given Brad the keys to the Holy Land, keys to the office, and signing him up for that long-term deal. It's an amazing achievement from Brad, the Binder family, and a good testament to all the hard work and effort that they've put in. There's no doubt about that. Yvonne Pretorius, Al Camino, John McLaughlin, Shane Foley, Ian Jefferson, Sven Gruner was there. How's it, Rob? Magnificent Red Bull Ring. Sven, I told you. Certainly, if you're a journalist, as Sven was at the Red Bull Ring for us at Motorrad World, they spoil you absolutely rotten. You get food all day, and it's proper like Michelin style chef stuff, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Beverly Urendal, how are you doing? Hope your nephew Cam is healing up well, and hopefully we'll get him back into the racing soon. Happy to see Dixon realizing he was a clown, and a good evening. Hannes, yep, Dixon has apologized. I would have liked to hear him. I know he apologized to Darren and the whole team. I would have liked to hear him apologize to Darren's family, because he doesn't realize, and people like in the professional world like us don't realize that when they make scathing comments the way Dixon did, it also hurts the family who have poured a lot of time and energy into the whole thing. So accepted the apology. We move on from it, but I would have liked Dixon to take that apology further and apologize to Darren's family. But anyway, it's water under the bridge now. Let's move on from it. Although Dixon didn't go out and do what he told the world he was going to do and win every single Moto2 race from there out. Unfortunately not. Good riding fourth. Can't take that away from him, but didn't go out and destroy the field as he was going to do. Hey, Stephen Berry. Oh, look, it's Rob Portman. Hey, Stephen, how you doing? Martinez Lambrex. Good evening, Rob and all. Daniel Steinhaber, Rob Harpen, Waylon Jones, Byron Nietling. Everyone is joining in. YouTube user. I like YouTube user. I like some of the comments we had last time by YouTube user. Devi Eisterman. I hope I said that right. Hi, Uncle Rob. Any news on Darren? I haven't had any news on Darren. The last I heard is pretty much what everyone else heard, that he had a fractured vertebra or something. It was a nasty crash, and we'll talk about Darren, but we might as well just start there with Darren and get it done. Just the unluckiest rider in the world at the moment. People keep asking me what's going to happen. Is he's contracted for next year? The truth is, from what I can take, and maybe someone will confirm it in the comments, or if Trevor or Sharon or anyone from the Binder kind of fraternity are in this, my kind of taking from the Darren contract situation was that he was contracted for this year, but with an option to extend from his side, and an option to not extend from the team side. So if the team weren't happy, they could decline and not carry on. If Darren wasn't happy, he could move on. If they were both happy, they could continue for another year. So all seemed gloomy. All seemed happy to me at Silverstone. Team were happy. Darren was happy. Although comments came out after Silverstone that the team weren't happy, and they were potentially looking at other options. This crash, this result, this injury won't help that. If that is true, I'm hoping the team realize what they have there and know there's a very fast rider there that just needs a little bit of luck, needs a little bit of fortune going his way. Darren's biggest problem this year, he just needs race laps under his belt. If you add up how many actual race laps he's had under his belt, it's not many. He's had injury, he's been taken out first corner twice. This crash, he's out of his own doing, he's had crashes in the races as well. So he just needs momentum. Darren needs momentum to show the world what he's capable of doing. At the moment, he's not able to do that. So yeah, let's see. I wish Darren nothing but the best. But certainly, if you write things down on paper and you read it, it doesn't make for great reading. The results, the performances, and all that. But there's a fantastic package there in Darren Binder. It just needs a chance to show itself. So let's hope it can show itself. Sven Gruner, great ride by Celestino Vietti. Yeah, I mean, he became the forgotten man of Moto2 Vietti. I forgot about him. I forgot he even existed. And there he was, a brilliant ride. It was a brilliant weekend for the VR46 Academy. Rossi was there, and it just seemed to boost them even more because they really did have a great weekend with Vietti in Moto2, Bagnaia in MotoGP, Bezzecchi MotoGP, Marini MotoGP. They really are firing on all cylinders, that whole outfit. And I just love the fact that VR46 is there, old Rossi with his VR46 cap and his Yamaha badge on the side, using that Yamaha money to buy Ducatis to go race in MotoGP. I just love it. Love it. Brad leading the non-Ducati championship. Jorge, yep, you're absolutely right. Nicole Briat, how are you, Nicole? Hope you are doing well. Can't help to think what would have been if he had stayed on the RNF seat this year. Hannes, yeah, what if? Raul Fernandez has certainly been the biggest disappointment in MotoGP for a long time. I said it in the last show. I don't think Raul Fernandez is a MotoGP rider. He hasn't proven himself to be. But then again, anything could have happened with Darren this year. He could have climbed on that Aprilia and shone and really proved himself, or he could have had the bad luck he's having now. You just never know. Brian Ritchie, our other man that was present at the Red Bull Ring and absolutely loved it. Loved your pictures, loved Sven's pictures on Facebook. It just gives us all a sense that we're there. Absolutely love seeing that. So Darren's teammate Luka Tulovic will probably lose his seat at the end of the year. So there's a little bit of insight. Well, listen, he had a great result at Red Bull Ring, top 10, but Darren, even with his injuries and the lack of laps, comes back and is straight away faster than him. So as I said, there's some greatness there in Darren. It just needs time to shine. And no doubt that Darren needs tweaking a little bit here and there, but he just needs, both Darren and Oliveira, Byron Yetland, you're absolutely right, Miguel Oliveira as well. And it just does. And this is where Darren needs laps under his belt, momentum to be able to get that confidence, because when you have the confidence, you ride faster. When you're riding faster, you qualify higher and you stay out of all this kind of nonsense that happens further back. Same with Miguel Oliveira. He got caught up in the melee in turn one in the sprint race because you're coming from a little bit further back. So we've got all that. I've got my notes. We've got a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to go through some of the comments there. It looks like we've pretty much caught up. So let's start with the actual racing action. I'm going to start at the top because he deserves it. The man of the weekend, apart from Brad signing his long-term contract, amazing ride in second place as well. But Pecco Bagnaia is just, when he gets into this kind of state, there's still that little mistake that can sometimes creep in from Pecco. He could go to the next race meeting and tuck the front, and the Ducati's too good then, and the tire pressure and. But this weekend, Pecco showed why he's got that number one plate on, and why Ducati is the bike to have. He was just so good, and he makes leading a MotoGP race look so easy when it's not. It's not, when you know that you've got a Binder coming right behind you, and God knows who else, at KTM's home track with a KTM so strong, and Pecco just did not put a foot wrong, just did not make a mistake. He was just inch perfect, and he looks, while Brad's getting that KTM all kinds of sideways, and that Pecco, when I was speaking to Simon Crayford at Silverstone, we kind of analysed it. And, the KTM boys, they slide it in like Motard style and quite an aggressives. But, that's how they like it. And that's how the bike works for them. Whereas Pecco just does this, he does this like float. And you watch from the side of the track, he floats the bike and he gets it all corrected and he just puts it in. And, he just makes the process look so easy. you can see Brad and Jack like riding that KTM, and it's doing what they want now, whereas it used to fight back in the past, and that's where Brad used to struggle. But that's Brad's riding style, the old Moto2 riding style. That's how he likes it. But Pecco just makes it look so easy. He makes being a MotoGP rider look so easy. You watch him and you think, but I'm sure I could do that. If I really tried hard enough, I'm sure I could do that, because he makes it look so easy. When you watch Brad and them, you go, no, there's no ways. I'm not going to back it in like that. And mid-turn, get the thing sideways and in and out of the corner. But Pecco just makes it look so easy. He really does. So hats off to Pecco. Really, really phenomenal ride there. And the only man that could push him the whole weekend was Brad. And Brad was there at the start of the race and kept going, and loved Brad's debriefs afterwards. It wasn't like, oh, well, I didn't have the bike and my tire was crap, and if I had the Ducati, I'd beat him. Brad, humble in defeat, thankful to his team, brilliant job. Pecco was phenomenal. And, Brad's like, well, we're on the right track, but we've got a serious rider to try and catch out front there. So, love being humble like that in defeat. Pecco 8 seconds ahead of the next Ducati, 3 times GP22. Stephen Berry, great point. Bezzecchi, Marini, and Alex Marquez. Another good ride from Alex Marquez there behind him. And this GP22 factory Ducati question I'm going to touch on a little bit later with Bezzecchi and what his future plans are. But listen, we know at Red Bull Rings of Ducati track, start, stop, accelerate out, and off you go. And you could see with those onboards early on with Brad, in the Foster sweeping corners, when you come out of that turn 4, I think it is, and then you go into the Foss left, and right up the hill into that final sector. The KTM, which it never used to be able to do, carried that corner speed, and he would close in on on Bagnaia. But those first couple of corners where it's brake late, get the bike turned, stopped, and accelerate out, that Ducati is just unstoppable. I mean, the KTM has improved tenfold. There's no doubt about it. But that Ducati just stops on a dime, especially the way that Pecco Bagnaia was doing it, stopping, turning it, and accelerating out. It just crept away from the KTM, and Brad would do everything on the brakes, creep away again, and then in the fast swooping stuff, that KTM would come. But ultimately Brad just had to use so much energy, tire, to try and stay there with Pecco, who was just faultless. So brilliant stuff. That is why he's got the number 1 plate on the front of that bike. Byron Nettling, KTM BB, had the superior edge grip, but the Ducati out of the corners was insane. You could see it on the onboard. Byron, you're copying exactly what I just said. But it was obvious. You didn't have to be a long-time MotoGP watcher or pundit or whatever, you're journalist or professional, to see that that KTM was really good on the edge grip in the Foss corners, but that Ducati just leapt out of the corner. So anyway, as I said, Pecco Bagnaia, well done. Brad Binder, let's talk about his weekend. As I said at the start of the show, it's when the news of the contract signing came out, I actually sat down for a couple of minutes and thought about it properly, that here is this kid from Krugersdorp, South Africa. I remember at one stage when Shez was kind of fizzling out and we didn't really have anyone on the main stage. Brad was kind of just starting out at Red Bull rookies, and you kind of thought, well, we're never going to have someone in MotoGP. It's just not going to happen. And I remember Trevor Binder telling me, my boys will be in MotoGP. Yes, Trev. Yeah, yes, Trev. Okay, Trev. And there we have Brad Binder, one of the best MotoGP riders right now. Certainly top 3. One of the best MotoGP riders ever, with his speed, his bike control, his everything. And it's starting, the KTM starting to really let him show his true worth. And the fact that this massive corporation like the KTM group put all their faith and resources into this one guy, it's huge. It is absolutely massive for Brad, the Binder family, and for South Africa as a country to have that kind of commitment shown from this massive corporation. It truly is absolutely phenomenal. And hats off to Brad for making the opportunity to work. When we were all shouting, leave KTM, they're not going to get there, leave them, you're wasting your career. I put my hand up and say I was one that was, Brad, starting to question, just make the move and make life easier for yourself. You're aging, he stuck to his guns when others around him didn't. Zarco didn't even last a year. Oliveira gave it a good go, but, he wanted to try somewhere else. And Brad is stuck there. Paulo Spargaro, moved on, although he's come back. Brad has stuck to his guns, and he showed his loyalty and his faith, and it's paying off. And another testament to Brad's loyalty is, okay, other than changing helmet brands from Arite to HJC, Brad has been with TCX and Ixon almost from day one. The man is just loyal. He looks after those that looked after him and look after him, and it's a brilliant attribute to have. It really is, and I look forward to many more years of massive success for Brad and for KTM, and I'm very pleased that partnership is carrying on. Let's have a look here. Jonathan Borg, yes, Pecco, brilliant. Brad, brilliant, but unlucky yesterday. His MotoGP race is the boringest race ever, apart from the late Bez Martin pass late in the race, and sprint wasn't very different. It was, Red Bull Ring tends to bring that out. Yes, we had the great years with Dovi and Marquez, but then there was a gap to it. It does tend to split the field, the Red Bull Ring, and yeah, Pecco did make it very boring. Take Brad out of the equation, and there was a massive gap, but it did make it a bit boring. Other than the race behind, the Bezzecchi, the Alex Marquez, the Marini, further back than that, we didn't even see. I mean, we'll touch upon the Marc Marquez's, and that pretty much in no man's land, unfortunately. But yeah, it was, Jonathan. I have to agree with you. It was very boring, and the brilliance of Pecco made it boring, and the die hard, never say die attitude of Brad made it exciting for a bit, but ultimately not even he could keep up with the brilliance that was Pecco. Bevan Hope, my feeling on Daz is he relies too much on the front braking. He should try adopt a bit more of Brad's style. Bevan, listen, that's as a big fan of Darren as I am, and a massive supporter, the critic side is he does need to maybe fine tune one or two things. And look, he'll know this. He'll be sitting there knowing that he's got to change one or two things, and but he needs momentum to have the confidence to be able to try these things. As I said, you add up the amount of laps he's actually done in race conditions on a Moto2 bike, where you learn the most. Testing in that you're chasing setup, you're chasing lap times. In race conditions, you can just go, and he hasn't had a lot of that. So he really does need to pick up momentum. And look where Marc Marquez is in his situation. Sometimes you got to take a step back to go forward. And Marc Marquez now is riding around, no doubt, nowhere near where he wants to be or the way he wants to be. But the only way you're going to get feedback, results, data, confidence is by staying on the motorbike. And as Bevan, as you said, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but Darren needs to find something just to change something. Listen, luck is also a big part of it. There's no doubt about that. But there are one or two little things that Darren can fine tune, to make that adjustment. As you said, we've seen it for so long. Darren, no doubt, has, in many ways, the bigger balls than Brad, and is a foster rider. When they come back to South Africa, put them on motards, and that Darren's right on Brad's arse. Racecraft Brads just always seem to have that little bit extra, and Dan's got to fine tune that. But there's a fantastic rider there in Darren Binder. Just needs to come together. Unfortunately, MotoGP is becoming Formula One on two wheels, and is all tires' fault. Luckily, Bridgestone are solid to be interested to come in 2026. Hopefully it happens and it changes something, Jonathan. Jonathan, I agree with you. I don't want to say it's become stale, because there's still the excitement of MotoGP. Then as I said in my last podcast, is the riders and the way they ride the bikes keep it exciting. Dorna, in some ways hamper that excitement and chop that excitement with some of their ridiculous things. Just got a bit of information here regarding Darren. Daz just had another MRI in Barcelona and saw a back specialist. She said the injury on L3 and L4 is like a broken rib, not as bad as the other doctors thought. He must rest. Let's just see. He must rest a few days and can probably ride at the next race. The hematoma on his left side will probably be more sore than the back. Thank goodness, some great news that is needed. That is brilliant news. Thank you so much to the Binder family for sending me that. So a bit of inside information there, that there is an injury there, but not as bad as we first thought. So brilliant there, Daz. Heal up and just come back stronger and just keep fighting. You know, the poor kid has just been fighting his whole racing career, even back in South Africa, and that's my massive attraction to Darren is he just never gives up. Even last year, where I was right there to see the struggles in MotoGP and where he wasn't getting support where he should have, and the kid just keeps going. He just keeps going. He really does. So fingers crossed, Daz, rest up, get the rest you need, come back, get some race laps under you, get some momentum going, and we can finally see the Darren Binder that I know and a lot of people out there know is there. Start winning some races, start proving some people wrong, and get you back into MotoGP and shoving it on the inside of your brother and giving him an elbow. That'll be fantastic. Jonathan, back to Jonathan's comment, that'll be brilliant if Bridgestone come back in, because as you said, it'll just, it'll almost start from scratch again and make things very interesting, because Ducati have made their package the best on Michelin's, whereas Honda's biggest handbrake is the moment their package just doesn't work on Michelin's. The European bikes are working on Michelin's. How happy the teams will be after throwing gazillions and gazillions of development into getting their bikes right for Michelin's and then Bridgestone come back in, I don't know. But I understand what you're saying, Jonathan. I do agree in some way there just needs to be a little spanner thrown in the works, because Ducati, the Pecos, the others are getting a little bit too comfortable. I love the fact that we're seeing KTM and Brad starting to challenge more and more and more. They deserve it after all the hard work they've done. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying in some ways, that it does need a reboot in some senses, not completely, but in some senses. Brad, you beautiful man. What happened to Miller? Same bike or running new parts? Byron, if you read my Facebook comment today, and Miller's one of the comments I have here, Jack Miller is getting a lot of criticism over the last couple of races. He's able to start well. He just can't carry it in the races. He's, crashing a couple of times, and he's just not doing what Brad is doing. But that was never going to be Jack's job for this year. Jack's job for this year was KTM signed Jack along with the Ducati minds to improve the package, to improve the project. Has he done that? Yes, he has. Tick the box. Jack has also brought a fresh, this fresh environment into the KTM team. Brad's loving him. Brad is the biggest benefactor from Jack on and off track. He makes the whole vibe enjoyable for the team to just flourish. And there's no doubt that Jack's input has improved the KTM package. And that was always the main goal. Jack, come in with your Ducati knowledge, with these Ducati minds, put it together, make our package better, so that Brad Binder, who's ready to go, can go straight away and compete. We didn't expect Jack to be I didn't expect Jack to be a title contender this year. Jack's main aim was to be, in many ways, a glorified test rider in race conditions. So, as I said in my comment, we can't, or I don't think we should be so skeptical or so judgmental on Jack and his KTM for his first year. I want him to go out in those race conditions and try something different to Brad and see if it works or not. And if he falls back, look, Jack doesn't want that to happen, but tested it out, cool, ticked off the list, can't do that. So Brad, you carry on and go flourish, and that's the setup that works. You go, and Jack, experiment in the races, because I want you to do that this year. By the time next year comes, and if this Jack and these results on the KTM are still happening, right, then we can start picking it apart and saying, Jack, this year you go test in those race conditions, because that is the best place to test and get data from, is in race conditions with a rider like Jack Miller. And he's doing the job. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I think he's overachieved in many ways already. But ultimately, has it worked? Yes. KTM are probably selling more caps, more merch off the track than they ever have. He's a fan favorite. He's a journo's favorite. He's a crowd pleaser. As I said, when you go to the racetrack, outside the trucks, fans are waiting for Jack, Brad, Marquez, a little bit Quartararo still, Pecco, and then, the Bears vibe is getting bigger, and the rest kind of have their little bit. But those are the big players in terms of fans. You walk around the track now, and I'm sure Sven, Brian, you would have seen it. There's still the VR46 clan. There's no doubt. There will always be VR46 caps and shirts. But Red Bull KTM memorabilia, shirts, jackets, caps, Jack Miller, Brad Binder ones are everywhere. You look at how many South Africans are traveling around the world, spending a lot of money because of the rands and the conversion to go support Brad and Darren and Rashaim Woodley in this case at Red Bull Ring around the world. And they, the Jack Miller to KTM project is working. The Brad Binder at KTM project is working. Carry on doing what you're doing because it is working. No problem. And if you look at the way that Jack Miller and KTM have adopted Jack Miller to become this, we're going to give you a test season. And I'm not saying it's cast in stone that that's what they've done, but from how I look at it, that's what they've done. Is right, Jack, come first year, you develop, you make us better. Whatever that takes. If it means you're going to crash in some races, so be it. If it means you start well and you fade back, so be it. It's going to be hard for Jack Miller because it's a battering on his confidence as well. But if he's in the back of his mind knows that, right, I've got this year to try these things, to get myself ready for 2024, to make myself and the KTM even more competitive, great. Then I think he's got to kind of give himself that little bit of leeway. But this is what Honda should have done all those years ago. Where Honda have failed now, and their failings are now, at the forefront, is all those years of having Marc Marquez winning and saying, Danny Pedrosa saying, hang on, but yeah, Mark's winning, but your bike's not fantastic. Cal Crutchlow, yeah, he's winning, but your bike's not fantastic. Having all of those guys and no real test kind of, program in place. They had Casey Stoner for a while. Why they let Casey Stoner go, I don't know. Ducati have just carried on their testing programs where Honda kind of shut it down. Oh, well, we got Mark, we're winning, it's sweet. Meanwhile, Mark was overriding a bad package. And that's coming back to haunt them now. While the others have progressed and got better, Honda haven't. Nothing against Stefan Bradl, but I do think, he's maybe not the man there for Honda now, because whatever he seems to okay and send to Mark and them doesn't seem to make any real impact. And another thing that's kind of highlighted Mark is that he's not a development rider. Has he made the Honda better so far this year? No. What is he really bringing to it? All those years of overriding the bike and winning, fantastic, but you didn't make a very good competitive package at the end of it. You were just overriding a bike and getting away with it. And, your skill and your bravery at the end of the day is what was winning, not the fact that you had created a great package. And that's what's hitting Honda now. Same with Yamaha. They had Lorenzo, that they decided not to carry on that relationship as a test rider for whatever reasons, COVID, money, whatever. But you didn't take your testing or your test package seriously enough. And it's coming back to haunt them. Whereas KTM grabbed hold of Pedrosa, Mika Kallio, they've kept 4 bikes on the grid. We want 4 bikes on the grid. We want more bikes. They've kept that development going. Whereas Honda and Yamaha, I just don't think took it seriously enough. KTM and Aprilia as well, Ducati have got wild cards all the time, and you always see them testing. Whereas Yamaha, you get a picture of Cal Crutchlow at Motegi testing in colors that he's going to do a wild card. Yeah, that's fine, but Motegi, you need to be out at Europe. You race mostly in Europe. Go to European tracks. Go to Jerez, Catalonia, Red Bull. Go to these places and test. Motegi, go there. You go to those kind of conditions once a year. It's going to pour with rain, and what does it mean anyway? So yeah, the test programs are failing Honda and Yamaha as well, especially Yamaha with no satellite team at the moment as well. How's that? The rock band anthem. Dylan Conway, I will phone you back. I promise you. I know you're trying to phone me 100 times. Every time you try and phone me, I'm either playing football with my kids or eating supper or doing something. Your timing is very bad. But then at the same time, I need to slap myself in the face because I don't phone you back. So slap done. I will phone you back. Don't you worry. Safa Dilemma, always loyal no matter what. Haha, Flynn, you're right, Flynn. And sometimes it bites Safa's in the arse, loyalty. But in this case, it's worked out perfectly for Brad. Rob here, Harpin, how can Brad get the KTM package but Jack can't? I think I've kind of just answered that in a way. Lee Bennett, as if the stars are aligned for Brad. MotoGP is gaining massive popularity each week and just the right time for Brad and Darren. And the fact Jack is at KTM just sweetens everything. There we go. Brad needs to push Riche from a political point of view, backing the South African riders. And Mr. Moodley has some serious talent. With his penalties, he's still brilliant result on the weekend. Byron, I can tell you now, Brad and Darren do. They support Riche as much as they can in the paddock there. It's obviously hard because, Brad and Darren are there to do jobs and their weekends are literally packed. But I've been at race weekends where literally 8, 9 o'clock at night, Brad or Darren will be like, right, we've got to go see Riche, or cool, we've got a 10-minute gap. Let's go see Riche. So yeah, Riche is no doubt going to be another big talent for us, for South Africans. My only concern is with the new rule of, you've got to be 18 or the year you turn 18 in Moto3. It's going to be a huge handbrake for Riche. He's growing at a rapid rate. These kids grow fast these days. And, I just worry in 2-3 years' time, Moto3 is just going to be a bunch of tall kids on small motorbikes in a way. Riche Moodley's got the talent. Let me tell you, Riche Moodley's got the talent. The family's got the determination. They're sacrificing in the same kind of ways the Binders did, away from family and friends, separated for a long time, out of South Africa, out of their comfort zone. So they're doing everything right. And I have no doubt that Riche Moodley will be in that MotoGP paddock for a very long time. So brilliant ride on the weekend. As you said, served the long lap penalties. He's a top rider in that Red Bull Rookies Cup now, and that's a great place to be. So brilliant stuff by them. Rob, I think Jack is the mobile race test lab to enable Brad to do well. Brian, exactly, brilliant. Stephen Berry, speaking of HJC and Brad, I was looking at the helmets, and there's Brad with the big RSA flag on top. All the other big brands don't have their country's flags on the helmet. Proudly, Team South Africa. Stephen, you're absolutely right. And this is, to be honest, is what's hampering a Brad Binder replica at the moment from coming out, is that, and you can understand from a growth sales point of view, a worldwide point of view, HJC are looking for something a little bit more generic to be able to sell to the open public. Obviously, if they release it as it is, South Africans will buy it. But the reality is, a couple of hundred, if you're lucky, 1,000 South Africans would buy it. Whereas if it's a bit more generic, your worldwide audience would be open to it. So yeah, very patriotic. Brad has always been patriotic. Every time I see him, he tells me, how could you leave South Africa? You're an idiot. It's a beautiful place. It's your country. And I get the whole spiel, but very patriotic. And yeah, we've got the perfect poster guys, or poster boys, I should say, representing South Africa in the MotoGP paddock and all around the world, with the Shezes, the Stephen Windals, everyone. Sven Gruner. Oh, hang on. Hey, Rob, Jack looking pretty average. Why do you think this is? I think I've answered the Jack question now at KTM, so we'll move on. As I said to you, Rob, if one looks at the Red Bull Ring setup and how they've got everything right, I now understand why Brad sticks with KTM. They will give him a championship winning bike soon. Absolutely right, Sven. They really have. If you go to the Red Bull Ring, you'll see, as I said, I think Brad, somewhere in his house in Andorra, has got a set of keys to KTM's factory just lying in that little Tupperware thing that we all have to put keys in, or hanging up or something. But I think Brad's the kind of guy that throws keys on a counter like me. So yeah, he is. He's done a fantastic job. John Fernandez. Hey, Rob, who would have believed we would see Brad become a true MotoGP hero with worldwide fans? I get goosebumps watching the support he is now enjoying. Completely agree with you. Jonathan Borg, to whoever is writing about Average Miller, and he's saying the bike is not settled to his liking. It's to my understanding that next year will be his last year on the KTM official bike. This, I can understand this, because Jack's biggest problem at the moment is he's on a very, very wanted seat on that KTM now. Marc Marquez wants it. Pedro Acosta wants it. These other youngsters coming up. Alonso, the Colombian rider in Moto3, who looks sensational. He's part of the KTM Gas family at the moment. So KTM have got this influx of riders that are going to come through, and maybe not next year, but certainly the year after, as Jonathan's saying, are going to be knocking on that door. And if Jack's kind of performing the way he is still now, which I'm still okay with for this year, as I said, but next year has to be a completely different story. Jack's ride will be under massive threat. So So yeah, let's see what happens there with that. Everyone just getting the news of Daz that I read through. That's great. Douglas Twig, don't worry. Thank you for joining us. Nevertheless, you can always scroll back afterwards and catch up on what you've missed. It hasn't been much. Someone agreed with us. I like single make tires. What's good about multiple tire manufacturers, they can make tires to suit specific bikes. Every time Michelin changes things, KTM seems to lose the most and Ducati seem to benefit the most. So yeah, I agree with you. And what Jonathan was saying about the tires. How does Jorge Martin bulldoze half the field? Okay, Ian, we're going to get into that any second now. Let me just do a little bit of admin catch up here. Listening. After listening between the lines to how RNF ran with Darren last year with rookie technician electronic guys, I'm wondering if the team isn't Miguel's problem. So Paolo, Portugal, obviously asking about Miguel. It is. Just like as I kind of use this example many times. It's the same with Premier League. Teams with kind of less money and less resources generally hang around there. There's a few odd surprises in that every now and then, but it's generally the big players up here, the smaller ones down here. And RNF, unfortunately, are a small player. They don't have the finances to go and hire the top techs as KTM have done. In many ways, bought success. Just like Ducati did. As soon as they could grab Gigi Dall'Igna, they did it. RNF Aprilia, unfortunately, aren't in that position. And I saw it firsthand last year. Darren's biggest handbrake to his progression as a MotoGP rider last year was the team and them not being able to give him a package good enough for him to showcase himself. And that's, in a way, what's happening with Miguel Oliveira. Listen, wheel weights falling off is not on. Whether that's Michelin, the team, or something, as far as I know, the team have nothing to do with wheels and tires. That's very much Michelin's job. But it's unlucky, but wheel weight should not be falling off at MotoGP level. So yeah, Miguel Oliveira is just also, and it just shows you that we all know the talent that is Miguel Oliveira, but luck is hampering him at the moment. And it's the same with Darren Binder. You can say as much as you want and say he's not good enough, and luck plays a big part of it. You look at Danny Pedrosa, one of the greatest MotoGP riders of all time. He did not win a MotoGP title because he just had bad luck. There's been loads of them. Marco Simoncelli, may he rest in peace. Just wrong place, wrong time. And some riders will go through their whole careers like this. I really hope it changes for Darren at some point. But the reality is you get these seriously unlucky riders in their racing careers. I could have been a MotoGP rider. I'm not going to even go there. I won't go there. So many people will go there, but I'm not going to go there. Not sure if Aprilia was supplying technicians with a bike, but wow, the number of mechanical brakes not working, wheel weights. There we go, Stephen. Yeah, I agree. There's just so many problems going on there. Jonathan, rider news for Gas next year. Reading between Paul and Raul, one will test and one will be a reserve with 6 wild cards. Correct, Stephen. Good question. Jonathan, answer it right now. Hearing Bez speak and how Rossi was trying to convince him to stay made him feel special. Mooney team is like a family, which he won't have at Pramac. So Sven, you make a good point. For those who follow the Motor Rider World YouTube channel would have seen I put a paddock talk for World Superbikes and MotoGP up earlier, talking about Rins moving to Yamaha. Zarco, big news coming out of this weekend. Paddock leaving Pramac and signing for LCR Honda. Now people go, how can this happen? Why would you leave Ducati to go to this sort of fragile Honda project? Very much a case of, Ducati not pushing him out the door, but Ducati saying, right, we'll keep you on in a World Superbike role and as a Ducati test rider role, potentially, surely less money would have been involved. And LCR came knocking and said, we'll give you stupid money, a good commitment. And I'm sure with the possibility of being a test rider after the full-time contract, which I think is a brilliant move from Honda, signing Zarco. Again, comes with Ducati information, a bit of KTM. He comes with experience, and he comes with knowledge, and he comes with a fresh approach, which Honda need right now. And I think they need to do exactly what KTM have done with Miller. Throw Zarco in there in race conditions as very much a test rider. Zarco is not going to go and win a championship next year, even if he was on a factory Repsol bike. I love Zarco. I think he's a fantastic rider, but Ducati are willing to let him go because he just doesn't have that final step. Hasn't picked up a win in MotoGP yet, despite all the years and all the nearlies. And then there's Martins, the Brad Binders, the Miguel Oliveras, the Bezzecchis, everyone else that have won races. So it was very much a case of Ducati going, well, again, we've got a great pool to play with. Are we going to be hampered by losing Zarco? I don't think so. So it's very much Honda's gain, I think, because, cast your mind back a couple of talking MotoGPs ago, I said, well, who are Honda going to get? Zarco, I was saying Iker Lecuona was really the only option, whereas Zarco is a much better option in terms of experience, knowledge, fresh approach, could potentially be this test rider, this test program that Honda need to go forward. So, good deal there for Zarco and LCR. That obviously leaves this second factory Ducati ride open in the Pramac team, which was offered to Bezzecchi. I agree with Bezzecchi and exactly what Jonathan and Sven and everyone are saying. Rossi said, a rider like Bezzecchi thrives in the environment that he's in. A team around him, people around him that he knows. That is more precious than a factory Ducati. Look at Bastianini. Bastianini is a wounded dog at the moment in that factory Ducati team, because at Cressini it was that family environment. It was that cuddling. It's some riders need that cuddling. Bastianini is not getting that cuddling in the Ducati team, especially with Pecco doing what he is, and the way Anea's season started. It's just been an unlucky run, but he's he just looks like this sorry little dog, crawled in a corner, because that's what factory Ducati will do to you. And Bezzecchi, I think, will stay with VR46. We'll ask for a little bit more from Ducati. I'm sure we'll get an upspec GP23 or something from next year. But they're proving it's yes, the bike's a big thing, but your environment is even bigger. And I think he'll stay there. I think it's very much. I mentioned Franco Morbidelli going to Pramac Ducati. We heard Chabati a couple of races ago say, we like Morbidelli as an option. We're thinking of him. Rossi has pushed, Morbidelli on a factory Ducati will be brilliant. And I kind of mentioned it in my paddock talk earlier. And then a couple of comments saying, do Ducati go out and really push at trying to steal Quartararo? We know Quartararo is signed with Yamaha. Hold your horses before you throw. He's signed for wow. Just hang on. This is modern day MotoGP. Contracts can very quickly change. Do Ducati go out and run and say, right, let's really go kill the opposition? Yeah, let's go really 1, 2, 3 Ducati week in, week out and steal Quartararo from Yamaha, because Quartararo is fragile at the moment. You go with a good contract on a Pramac Ducati, with a factory Ducati contract on a factory bike. Who knows? I'm not saying it'll happen. I don't think it will happen, but who knows? But more than likely, I think Morbidelli will fit into that. And if you look what Alex Marquez has done from LCR Honda to Cressini, and it's revitalized his career, there's no doubting that Morbidelli's career could be revitalized. So let's wait and see. If you look at the Zarco going from Ducati to LCR, you can understand why we're all going, what are you doing? Because, look at the Marquez from LCR to Cressini Ducati exercise. Look what happens there. So the only real big question mark is obviously Pedro Acosta. What's going to happen with him? Gas, as Stephen Berry mentioned. Does Paul become a glorified test rider with, a few more wild cards? But it's very much Pedro Acosta and Raul Fernandez. From the talk that I heard at Silverstone in the press conferences and the rider debriefs, and from what I hear on the outside, Augusto Fernandez will be staying put at Gas. Pedro Acosta will be his teammate, and Paulo Espargaro will be this glorified test rider. I know KTM have applied for we don't want a whole nother team. We just want a fifth bike on the grid. And with this pulling and pushing and everything going on between Dorna and KTM and Yamaha and Honda concessions, and KTM saying, screw you, they don't deserve it. We had to do it the hard way, make them do it the hard way. And if you want to do that, give us more bikes. There's this tug of war going on between Dorna and KTM at the moment. I would love to see a fifth KTM bike come in. with Akiayo and Pedro Costa running his own kind of team. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. So Cressini, Ducati, their second seat's the only one that's likely to happen. And it looks like, I mean, Jake Dixon's name has all of a sudden come in there. And listen, forget about what Dixon did with Darren and that, which was completely ridiculous, and lost a lot of respect for him. And that a little bit of a decent rider there. Certainly has become more of a consistently good rider. Picked up his first Moto2 win. Not an easy thing to do in that very tough class. Was just off the podium now in fourth this race. So, I look at Dixon to potentially be not as good as Bezzecchi, sure, but more of a big bike rider. So I think he'll climb on a MotoGP bike, and I think he'll do okay. I think he'll be quite good there. No doubt he'll have to bring money for that ride, because Cressini aren't going to pick Jake Dixon. If it was going about rider talent and who deserves it, Jake Dixon wouldn't be in the mix. But good option. Dorna need a UK passport in that paddock, in the MotoGP paddock. Jake Dixon is the only one really flying the flag at the moment. So yeah, let's see what happens. But go watch the video I posted up earlier, give you a little bit more clarity on everything that's going on there. And in World Superbikes, if you think MotoGP is interesting, World Superbikes is very, very interesting, or could turn out to be very interesting. Jonathan Borg's friend KTM decided to keep the best riders between Paul and Fernandez from next race until the end of the championship, next to Acosta. The match chosen rider will be doing 6 wildcards and replacement rides. So again, just pretty much what I've touched upon. Arushin can organize himself directly into a Moto2 seat. Let's hope that happens for Rocher. Let's really do. I think Zarco needs a change. Stiggy Wiggy, I agree with you. Something about VR46, their title sponsor from next year will be Pertamina for the following 2 to 3 years. Thanks for that, Jonathan. So Pertamina, they sponsor the Indonesian round. It's a big Indonesian company. Is it a fueling or energy company? I'm not too sure what it is. They've sponsored the Moto2 team in that. So that's a big scoop for them, because I thought it was going to be, I thought eBay have just come in. I thought they were going to take over title sponsorship, but it will be Pertamina, and they'll have to, there must be big money involved there, because Mooney VR46 has really become a brand. It's going to be hard saying the Pertamina VR46 Ducati team. Mooney VR46, just, it sounded cool. And I love the look and the feel of it, with the Luma yellow and the logo and the Mooney logo. It all fit in really well. So let's see. How's it from Gareth Davidson, Robert? Yeah, Gareth Davidson, another South African doing fantastic things. Made the move from South Africa over to Austria, working at head office now. He was at the GP this weekend as well. So yeah, South Africans are taking over that KTM. I'm telling you. I think I know more South Africans that work at KTM head office than actual Austrians in that. So yeah, let's see. Did you hear people's reaction when Brad walked on the podium? Jacques Claessens. Yeah, I'm telling you. Apart from the South African fans that rock up to get Brad and a picture and signed, as I said, at Silverstone, every time I saw BB33 KTM caps or BB33 Ixon caps or whatever, I was like, "Hey, how's it, Machana? You from South Africa?" No, like French or German or Italian. Brad's fan base is just growing. It really is just growing, and it's brilliant to see. It's absolutely brilliant to see. And well deserved, as I said, well deserved. I heard a comment on the race about KTM coping with rear tire in race leading conditions and being up there, and the wear issues are something KTM now learning that Ducati have a lot of experience with. Gordon De Beer, it is. People just think it's aero and engine, and it's not. Jonathan Borg made a very good point when we put our Facebook post up about Honda, and they're focusing so much on aero, but when you speak to Nakagami and them in the rider debriefs, they're saying the aero helps, but there's no rear grip. You get on the gas and you wait, and then the bike kicks in, and so engine layout and engine power delivery needs to be worked on. It's not just aero. They're focusing a lot on aero, but they're not listening to us in terms of engine and electronics. And as Jonathan Borg said, it's also how the Honda works on the Michelin tires. That's just that's not gelling. So there's a lot more to it than we actually see. And when you get to sit and hear riders debriefs, you paint more of a picture, and you can see more of what's actually going on in terms of what's lacking and what's not and everything. So yeah, let's see. Same as Tajima, good rider, but Rossi played his brain. Wade, I'm sure you're talking about rider mentalities. That's exactly what it is. Some riders can be broken, some can't, and that's where Brad Binder's one of his many strengths is die kop. Die seun is fris. Die seun is baie fris. Basti is getting back up to speed, but he also doesn't have last year's data on the new bike. Steven, very good point. Very good point. He's still complaining that he just doesn't have the same kind of feel as he did with the Ducati he had last year. And as you said, he's also playing catch up in terms of race laps and everything. Got taken out in the sprint race again. That's less laps. So the same kind of thing as Miguel and Darren are going through, and unfortunately be taken out, and then injuries and lack of time. You forget every single lap, especially in race conditions, it's vital. It is so vital to these guys, because you're not dealing with years ago where you had the factory teams do it on this factory Honda, and then some poor guy who's managed to just lease this bike and buy it from nowhere, and he's using tin cans as knee sliders at the back of the grid. You cast your mind back 15, 20 years ago, there was always a rider being lapped in 500s, or even in the early MotoGP days, because there was that much of a divide. The worst rider these days is finishing, 30, 40 seconds behind. When last did you see a rider get lapped? I mean, I'm talking properly lapped because he was slow in MotoGP, in Moto2, in Moto3. It doesn't happen anymore because we are just at this. We've brimmed the level of talent. It's just brimmed. Marc Marquez, what, in 12th, 13th place? I mean, that's where MotoGP is at the moment. Speaking of Marc Marquez, you know what? Love him or hate him, I don't like seeing Marc Marquez like this riding around. I don't like it. There was that one lap in qualifying where he got a bit out of shape, and I was like, yes. It still put him, at one stage he was up to third or fourth, I thought, yes, here we go. Within 2 minutes, he was down to 10th, 11th, and out of Q2 kind of thing again. I just hate seeing this reserved, this deflated Marc Marquez. This Marc Marquez, I have to ride around to get. It's just it kills me. Marc Marquez, you say what you want, he's not a 12th place. Dicing with Augusto Fernandez and Raul Fernandez and those kind of guys. He's not that kind of rider. Same can be said in many ways for Joan Mir. Joan Mir is just also a broken man, just not mentally strong enough. Since he won his title, really, he hasn't been mentally strong enough. He came out talking about, was thinking about retiring. When Brad Binder and KTM weren't performing, you never once heard Brad Binder come out and say, "Oh, I thought about retiring." Come on, guys. Joan Mir, come on. Mark's in a way doing the right thing for his own, physical well-being. Got to take a step back. You can't keep going the way you were and crashing. You're not getting data. You're not doing yourself any favors or your body any favors. Unfortunately, we are in the situation where Marquez has to take the step back and almost just ride around to get points and to get data. And it's sad to see. Sorry, I'm going to turn a light on here. Going in the pitch black here. Jeez, it's getting darker earlier in the UK, which means winter's coming. But anyway, that's the reality of where Mark and Honda are. And Mark has to do that, and it's horrific to see. It's horrible to see. I want to see Marc Marquez shoving it on the inside of Brad, of Bagnaia on a competitive Honda. But you even watch those onboards when he's trying to tag people. That Honda is a pig coming out of corners. They get on the gas and nothing happens. I mean, those bikes just, even the Yamaha, I think it was Morbidelli or Quattarari was following, that Yamaha just jumps away. And speaking about Yamaha, I actually don't know where the problem is. Their bike looks fast. It comes out of corners. Just seems to be this front end stability and getting the bike stopped. But yeah, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible seeing Marc Marquez and Honda where they are. I can't say I like it. Dixon is pushed by Dorna in Gresini, as Dorna are being pushed by TNT Sports for a British rider in MotoGP. Love that. Jonathan, thank you always for the brilliant, insightful stuff. Hey, Rob, I heard the KTM director interviewed by TNT Sports said that 2024 is the year they are winning the championship. How true do you feel that is, William? William, I feel it is very, very true. I could tell you now a little bit of Rob Don't Say Anything from last year was sitting, I think it was Mugello. I think Bjorn Esmond was actually there. I was sitting with Brad, Bob Moyes, manager, Bjorn and everyone. And, they were talking about contracts and, what to do going forward. And Brad's decision to sign this kind of contract or continue with KTM was very much, if we do not have a championship contending package by 2024, we are gone. We are gone. That is it. Brad signing the new contract, I think, pretty much says it all, William. They are on the right track. I think this year there's still a lot of racing. We've done 10 rounds. There's still 10 rounds left. There's still, what was it, 400 points or 300 something points up for grabs. Brad's only 80 something behind, or whatever it is. So I haven't looked at the championship. I know I posted on MOW, but I haven't actually looked at it. I know Brad crept up on Bidzeki and Martin in the points. I know that. But ultimately he lost a few to Pecco, who's just stretching away. But anything can happen. Pecco came from 93 points down, let's not forget, and that was with no sprint races involved. Stephen Berry pointed it out a couple of rounds ago when we were kind of talking. Pecco's gone. But hang on, there's a lot of anything can happen. A Martin could go blind again and shove it on the inside and take Pecco out the next ride, and Pecco gets injured, or anything can still happen. So. But William, simple answer to your question, yes, KTM and Brad will be title contenders in 2024. I have no doubt. Even this year they are. Their biggest hurdle is Pecco Bagnaia. Bez has still got his little crash, still learning. He's only 2 years in, which, again, I forgive Bez. Martin's a serious challenger, made stupid mistakes this weekend, which cost him, but Martin is no doubt a challenger. Other than that, I think that's it. But KTM and Brad's biggest problem is Pecco. Pecco this weekend, just once again, if you had any kind of doubt, Pecco just does this kind of thing, and you go, oh, holy crap, the guy is good. The guy is good. And then the way he does it is just so good. So, let's see. I have no doubt, though, that Brad and KTM have switched that switch, thanks, not entirely to Jack and all the Ducati guys that came across, because we cannot forget of the work that Brad and his team have put in all those years. But yes, there's no doubt that Jack has brought something that has helped take them to the next level. And Brad himself admits it, that Jack has brought something. And, Jack is also, as I said earlier on, I saw that first round, Brad was not a happy man, because Jack came in on this KTM and was putting in fast laps on soft tires, which you couldn't do. He was ticking a lot of boxes that KTM and Brad hadn't been able to tick. So, Jack, apart from improving the package, also boosted Brad and said, I've got a teammate here now that, nothing against Miguel, but I think Miguel's confidence in the project, certainly last season had kind of faded. So Brad didn't have this teammate willing to push and really fight, and I don't want to say that made Brad, I'm trying to find the word, not lazy, but kind of like, a little bit subdued. Now he's got this teammate, and that's why I talk about Rins going to Yamaha to put pressure on Quartararo, because Quartararo's got a teammate in Morbidelli that hasn't been motivated to put the pressure on. Jack's come in there and said, no, well, I'm going to make it work. Put softs on, let's go, and that's pushed Brad as well. So it's been a fantastic partnership, and it's working. So there's no doubt that Brad and KTM are ready to challenge for this title. The problem is Ducati and Pecco also are ready to challenge for this title. Ronaldo talking about Moto America there. Jake Gagne winning the championship again. Cameron Bobier's crash with and this is again to any rider out there, if you're a backmarker or slower rider, stay on your line. The fast riders all found their way past, because the rider came out, looked over him, there was a Bobier, his front wheel on his back. So anyway, let's hope Cam Peterson can heal up soon and get on there. Matthew Scott, brilliant job. Another podium ride there from him. Brilliant. I don't think it was a false neutral. I think the rider just kind of looked over thinking faster riders were coming, and just a stupid place to do it, to be honest. Joined a bit later. Don't know if this already come. Ducati's new launch device is potent. Yaku, it is, because Brad and Jack got brilliant starts, but Pecco was on point. Speaking about starts, Maverick Vinales. You do all that hard work on Friday and Saturday, get yourself on the front row, your best opportunity at a track you love, at a track, in the sprint race, he certainly showed great pace coming back from that turn one incident, which we will get into. Listen, we've still got race stewards to talk about, so just hang on. Don't go anywhere. But But Vinales, and it's not a Aprilia problem. I don't think it's as good as the KTM and the Ducati, but Alesia's proved that starts are good. Miguel Oliveira has proved that Maverick Vinales, he just needs to, someone needs to grab him and teach the man how to launch a MotoGP bike, because all that hard work, and it must be so frustrating for Aprilia to see this, all that hard work from Friday and Saturday just gone, Saturday qualifying, just gone because you don't know how to launch. And it's not exactly the longest run to turn one, and he gets it wrong. And that's ultimately what put him in that situation for turn one, in the sprint race. Ruined his whole weekend, ruined his whole thing. A drag racer needs to coach him. Sven, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. Ruan, the latest on Darren, if you didn't hear earlier, I got a message from the Binder family saying he's had scans in Barcelona. It's not as serious as first feared. There is a lot of damage. There's a hematoma there. It's like kind of almost like having broken ribs on some of the on his back. So while it is still bad, it's not as bad as we first thought with a fractured vertebra and that. So he needs good rest, and hopefully there's a chance that he'll be available for the next round. So just keeping you up to date, and anyone that didn't catch that earlier, Darren on the road to recovery, not as bad as we thought, but does need time to recover. So Ducati's launch device, brilliant. Yeah, Aprilia's terrible. Maverick Vinales, terrible. That brings us on to race stewards, a topic we have to talk about every single show, because I just don't know anymore. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse. So Martin goes barrel rolling on the inside, and again, common sense, the human racing factor should come into play here. Look at the corner at turn one. Look at the corner. I've stood at the inside of turn one there. Sven, Brian, I don't know if you stood there. It's a lot tighter than people think it is. It is so tight, especially with the green and how the corner kind of goes in and then it cuts itself back. It's a very tight corner. So for Martin to go in the way that he did, knowing, and now he's closed the whole corner because he's miles on the inside. Listen, I'm going to go a little bit in Martin's defense here. Maverick Vinales' cock start forced him into a situation where he had to avoid this and go on the inside. But then think the corner. Think of what's coming up, Martin. It's going to be a corner where you've got riders on your outside coming across because they have to, because it's a right-hander and you're on the right-hand side, on the inside, and it tightens up. What did the guy think was going to happen? It's not my fault, he says. Martin, you've been racing long enough, my friend. You cannot tell me you watch that again and go, well, it's not my fault. Ridiculous. Then it pops up, Martin, or turn one incident to be reviewed after the race. After the race. Since when do you now make decisions after the race? They've always been, it's going to be reviewed now, long lap penalty, as Fabio Quartararo's was in that race. There we go, Stephen Berry. Fabio didn't deserve the long lap, and I completely agree with you on that, Stephen Berry. Fabio did not. And that, to me, was a racing incident. Okay? That's a pure and utter racing incident. Okay? But then, never mind Martin taking out half the field in turn one and getting a long lap penalty after the race for Sunday. Okay? Race stewards will be reviewed after the race. When last did that happen? And it all of a sudden happens with a Spanish rider who's in the running for a championship. Oh no, geez, if we give Martin a big penalty here, it's going to be out of the championship. Oh no, we'll review it afterwards and find ways to kind of disguise this. Shut up. He then goes and shoves it on the inside of Marini. Now, talking point for me as well, because yes, it was harsh from Marini, from Martin. I think it was harsh. But at the same time, a racing incident for me. Martin went on the inside. He was on the inside. Marini came across. There was contact. Down he goes. It's racing. It's racing. But having said that, if you go on consistently how the race stewards have been analyzing, reviewing, and penalizing those kind of moves, Martin gets a long lap penalty all day long. So if you want to be consistent with the decisions that the race stewards themselves have been making, Martin deserves a long lap penalty, maybe 2 for his turn 1, and another long lap penalty for the Marini incident. Fabio Quartararo, last year, Assen, Aleix Espargaro, shoves it on the inside. Quartararo crashes, Aleix runs off, but still comes back on, one of the best rides we've ever seen, passes Miller and Brad in the final chicane. I think he picks up 5th or 4th. Brilliant. Okay. But Quartararo, the instigator in the incident, crashes, gets a long lap penalty. We all know what happened. He came, served a long lap, whatever, and landed on his head again. So how does Martin, as Marini says, as far as they know, if there's contact, it's a penalty. There's contact. The second time Martin's had contact with about the 10th rider in the space of 8 laps, and no penalty. Race stewards, once again, I will say this once again happily, because, we're all part of the sport, all of us. Pathetic, pathetic, pathetic decision making. Absolutely pathetic decision making. You do it to yourselves. You do it to yourselves. You absolutely do it to yourselves by making these ridiculous decisions. Will be reviewed after the race, when every single other decision with every single other rider involved, other than Pecco at Silverstone, happens there and then. Within seconds of Brad running on the green, it's a long lap penalty or 3-second penalty off the podium. Oh, come on. One more point. They shouldn't give a penalty from the sprint to the Sunday race. Jonathan, couldn't agree with you anymore. Because, again, it goes completely against what the rule book and how they've set the rules out to be. The rules are there to penalize the rider in that race, in that situation, not the next day. It was pathetic. What was really rubbish for me was TV direction in the sprint. First 4 laps were replays and showing riders on scooters and the pit crew. Stephen, didn't even think about that, but well put. His 3rd place should not have been recognized. Brian, I completely agree. So you've penalized him. So you've recognized that it's worthy of a penalty, and you penalized him for the Sunday. No, it's a sprint race. You are more than welcome to. Yes, we saw him celebrate on the podium, but it's a sprint race. Just give him a 3-second penalty, move him off the podium, or whatever whatever it's going to be, or move him 1 position back. Give him the penalty. Does not deserve to stand on the podium, and accept an award for taking half the field out on the inside with a stupid move that should have been recognized. It's just pathetic. Absolute pathetic. TV coverage is pathetic at times. I have to agree with you. Jonathan, agree. Remember, Marquez got a long lap that he never served from Portimao GP for Argentina GP, not Argentina Sprint. This is the kind of thing this is where Dorna and race stewards just open up a can of worms for themselves, because they are just so inconsistent. And then again, there's no clarification. Cool. Martin got a long lap penalty for the Sunday race. Okay, but why? And why did you review it after the race and not give him the penalty during the race? Why? Tell us why. Otherwise, we're just going to keep calling you idiots. We're going to keep telling you you're pathetic. Okay, I don't want to use the word idiot because we gave Jake Dixon a lambasting for calling. Well, it's a different situation. Pathetic. We're going to keep calling you pathetic, race stewards, because it is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. It took them till 7 p.m. to announce the penalty as well, Stephen. And then with no clarification. No, right, this is how we've come to this decision. None of that. None of it. It's just, Sven, if you're going to review after the race, then they need to be prepared to move guys off the podium if found guilty. Completely agree with you. If they have penalized Martin for T1 misery, Martin's clash would never have happened. Brian, you can't say never. Well, yeah, you're right. He might have done it to another rider, but he wouldn't have been in that position to be with Marini for it to happen. So I agree. I absolutely agree. Tom Jones, thanks for your excellent work. Rob, Tom, thank you very much for that kind comment. Really appreciate it. So anyway, that's it. Looking at Moto 2, I watched Moto 2 quite closely, and Acosta gets a warning for long lap, exceeding track limits, Then as far as I could see, and I don't know if anyone else saw it, I then see Acosta exceed track limits twice after he got the warning. I saw it clear as day once when he came onto the front straight, and then I saw it again. I can't remember what corner it was, but and it was minute touch, but it was a Brad Binder Assen kind of touch. A Pecco at Silverstone that should have triggered. So this is back-to-back race weekends almost, where this long lap, this exceeding track limits thing is just not working out. It's just not working out because for me, Pedro Acosta should have got some form of penalty for exceeding track limits, but didn't. So needs to be reviewed. Are the sensors working the way they should, or are race direction just covering up things that they want to cover up? It seems that way. It seems that way. Costa wasn't happy with having to take second. Shame. On Twitter, he apologized for coming second. Listen, at the home round, dominated the whole weekend. He was supposed to win, KTM's backyard. But listen, no one saw Celestino Vietti coming from where he did. It was amazing. You take nothing away from him. Are stewards using ex-riders? Wade, they are. They're using multiple world champion, a man who won a 250 and 350 or 250 and 500 or 350 and 500, whatever, world title in the same year in Freddie Spencer. This is what I'm saying. Common sense needs to come into play. Okay, yes, the sensor didn't go for Bagnaia at Silverstone, but use the picture footage. Use the footage that we all see. A rider like a former rider and former world champion like Freddie Spencer should have looked at Martin's move and gone, come on. It's a type shot right-handed, turn one. What are you doing, Martin? Come on. And this is why, 250, 500, thank you, Stephen. And this is why we are going to be on race stewards' backs all the time. And this is why Freddie Spencer, as much as he should still be this legend in motorsport, is just scrubbing his name through the mud because of these ridiculous, pathetic decisions being made. Moto2, amazing race like Moto3. Where did Vietti and Onchu come from? That's the kind of races we would like to see in MotoGP. Jonathan, I agree with you. Moto3 and MotoGP and Moto2 really are exciting. Youngsters like I keep forgetting his name, that young Colombian rider in Moto3, just doing fantastic jobs. Onchu has found something. Holgado, Sasaki, the unluckiest guy who just keeps getting robbed every single time. But it is Pedro Acosta looking fantastic in Moto2. Who saw Vietti coming? Good to see the Japanese rider, forgetting his name now as well, the Honda Asia riders, starting to show a little bit of form. He was supposed to be the biggest challenger to Acosta this year, had the injury and everything. David Alonso, thank you, Brian, in Moto3. And thank you, Andrea, for also telling me. David Alonso, Colombian, looks a real hot prospect, but KTM have got him at the moment. So KTM have just got all the guys sewn up. Ray Hendy, I nominate Ben Spies for steward. I would love that. You need a good one. You need a fresh. The race stewards need freshening up. I'm sorry. Boot the current guys. They are failing miserably. Let's get some more. Let's get like Simon Crafars in there. That Agura, Yakudas, Agura, thank you. Just brain fart completely. Get the Simon Crafars in there. But if you're going to give Ben Spies or whoever else, or even Freddie Spencer them, if you've given them that position, they've got to justify it. We want more communication. We want more open book. We need more clarification. Let's see. No consistency. Agree. From your insight, what is the missing piece of the puzzle for Brad and KTM in order to compete closer with Ducati? Nadim, just a little bit more time. KTM have literally just turned into this competitive package this year. 10 races. Ducati have been doing it now 2-3 seasons. So a little bit more time. By the end of this year, Brad said it himself last year, battling to qualify inside the top 11 at the Red Bull Ring, battling to get on the podium, finishing miles away. If anything, it was a game of two halves for KTM, because Jack finished quite far down in the main race, almost finished where the KTM was finishing last year in many ways. And Brad showed how much they've come up by being second and the only real rider to be able to challenge Pecco. So that if you ever need an indication of how far KTM have come, if you just look at this weekend. And Brad said it himself. We are a changed project. We are now ready to really challenge. And you can see Brad when he talks about it. He did that MotoGP guru thing with Nick Harris and that, and he said, "I'm not counting myself out of this championship. I'm very much in this championship." So Brad's got that championship talk and that championship tingle in his eye. So yeah, Yanni Stander rear grip. I agree with you. Rear grip, that getting the bike down, getting hooked up and out of those slow turns. It was there for all of us to see. The Ducati's still got the upper hand there, but certainly corner speed wide, front end kind of confidence and stability and braking late. The KTM's got it. It's just that getting it hooked up and out, the KTM's lacking a little bit. Top speed's good. It's just that initial getting it out. Ruan Detlef, has Darren done enough to keep his seat for next year? Darren, I spoke about it earlier. Ruan, sorry, I spoke about it earlier, so I won't go on too much about it. But on paper, no. If I'm being honest, on paper, he hasn't. But, the paper doesn't always tell the real story. Darren has been massively unlucky with being taken out, with injuries. I don't think he's had a fair crack at it just yet, but that's now up to Darren to also change in many ways. He's got to get himself fit now from this injury, got to, start getting momentum, finishing races, building the confidence, qualifying better, putting himself in a better situation that he doesn't have to push so hard on the opening laps. It's not like Moto 3 back in the day where you could qualify a bit worse and fight through the field. Everything's moved up and moved on. So he's got to just start getting more confidence with race finishes, with race laps, getting data, learning more about himself and how to ride the bike and the Dunlop tires. It's worlds apart from a MotoGP bike on Michelin's last year, Moto 3 bike on Dunlop's the year before that, to a Moto 2 Dunlop's this year, and a Kellex chassis and everything that goes with it. No electronics. There's a lot to take in. So he needs a bit of time, and I sincerely hope the team give him that time, because there's greatness there. There's greatness there. Just needs a little bit of luck, a little bit of fine tweaking from Darren's side in places, and there's greatness there. There really is. Jeepers, stick Casey Stoner in there, Andrea. No, don't. Even Ben Spies, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I just don't want to. I love Casey Stoner and Ben Spies. I don't want to have to hate them if they make the wrong decision. And listen, it's a tough job. I'm not saying that Freddie and them have got an easy job. They've got riders to listen to and a rule book to stick to, and that. The problem and where they're letting themselves down is the inconsistency and the no transparency. Got to do that. Off topic, Wade, but what is the latest with the MotoGP race in SA? Wade, as Sven says, never. Sven, you have now seen MotoGP, Saxon Ring and Red Bull Ring, and what it takes, and spectator-wise, facility-wise, audience-wise, the whole MotoGP show. Yeah, I just can't see South Africa doing it anytime soon. I'm not in the next 10 years, Sven. I agree. I hope I'm wrong, but certainly, not in the next 10 years. I really can't. Wade, you need a PlayStation and MotoGP 2023. Stephen, very true. KTM with a third team and a third rider in 2024. Eric van der Horst could be. I know they're pushing for that, so let's wait and see. Chances of KTM being allowed a one-bike team similar to Suzuki a few years ago. Yakudas, this is what they're pushing for, because Dorna have said, no, you're not having another two-man team. But KTM have this and Pitbara have this. Well, if you want us to approve Honda and Yamaha's concessions, one hand, you got to swing, the pendulum swings both ways. Give us a little bit and let's see. So let's see. Bring MotoGP to Red Star. Can you imagine MotoGP bikes around Red Star? It would be well, where would you put the teams? This is the thing. Where would spectators go? It's a lot more, but it would be interesting to see a MotoGP bike around Red Star. No, Eric, unfortunately, Espeleta said no, so that Mark would stay for another year with Honda, but should get them in 2025. Yep, it does look like Mir and Marquez have no choice but to be with Repsol Honda for next year, but certainly 2025 is going to be a big question mark in the rider market and certainly when it comes to KTM and Honda in the 2025 season. So let's see. Stephen Engelbrecht, my fear with KTM, Brad ahead of the horde of Ducatis chasing the star Ducati champion. The other three KTM still bringing the same result as in years past. Is there a Honda syndrome lurking? So, Stephen, I don't think so in many ways. Yes, I think Brad and his team and his side of the garage are with the project are a step ahead. Jack, again, just needs a little bit of time. Jack is experimenting, where Brad's making the right decisions on the data that he's got and the experience that he's got with how the KTM works in race situations, and Brad's approach. He's getting it right. Jack's approach for every practice and qualifying still is very much, well, try this. So again, yes, there's a little bit of a reflection there in terms of Paul and Augusto. Certainly, again, them just lacking time. Paul certainly coming back from injury. Augusto still learning. But, it just shows where Brad is and what they found and how confident he is in that. And using what he learned about the package in years gone by. And Brad from FP1 or P1 or whatever you want to call it, practice one, focuses on Sunday's race. There's no, let's go with this wacky wild change. They very much take the data they use, fine tune it, and that can sometimes be frustrating for us as fans because we go, Brad, why are you in P1, in the first practice, why are you struggling so much? There's a plan, and they're making it work. So let's see. Paul did have an excellent sprint race, Sven, as you say, he did. El Camino engine size dropping to 800s from thousands. I don't see that happening. You must remember how much development and money and resources teams have already spent. So now to go completely scrap all that and start again fresh is a kick in the face to the teams. Moving across to Bridgestone will hurt because a lot of teams have developed their bikes now around Michelin. But you're still keeping the same package. You're just now tweaking it to Bridgestones. To go change engines and aero and this and that, Dorna have dug the hole too deep now to go backwards, in my mind. Suggested 850cc. Unfortunately, Darren's bad luck in Moto3 and now in Moto2 has given him a black sheep reputation. Fred Watkins, you are right in many ways. You are frustratingly right in many ways. I want to smack you in the head in many ways because it's our DAS, but it's the reality of where the DAS project is at the moment. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because, as I said, there's a fantastic project there. There's a fantastic talent there, and we need to see it. Mac Oxley is skeptical of the tire pressure monitoring being enforced. A bit of controversy there, possibly. Ruan, I agree with him because when you throw things like this, there's always that question of manipulation and who's it really favoring and who's it not. And so I agree. I haven't fully dived into Matt's kind of argument into it. I've seen glimpses and highlights of it, but there's always going to be skepticism and question marks around when Dorna release these kind of things because who is it actually favoring? What are you actually trying to do with this kind of law and this kind of sanction or whatever you want to call it? It's a bit questionable. Wade, Jack is so predictable. You almost know he's going to drop 5 places after 3 laps in the lead. It's frustrating and sad. Wade, it is. But as I said earlier on the show, this year, I don't care where Jack Miller finishes. As long as he helps the KTM package and process develop, which he's doing, I'm happy. I will judge Jack Miller next year. This year, I will not judge Jack Miller because already what he has brought is helping Brad. His main aim for this year was to bring development, bring knowledge, bring data to the team to help Brad really progress. He's done that for now. Next year, if the same Jack as we're seeing this year comes more often than not, then I'll be more judgmental. But for now, I'm not going to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. I can smell my supper downstairs and I'm absolutely starving. We've had a great chat. We've touched upon all the great points. Thank you to everyone for throwing their 2 cents in. It's brilliant to see. As I said, we've all become brilliant MotoGP pundits and journalists. And Jonathan Borg, thank you so much for your information as always. Sven Gruner, Brian Ritchie for your inside information from the Red Bull GP this past weekend. Stephen Berry as always, and then Wade, Flynn, everyone else for throwing your 2 cents in the hat. It's brilliant. That's why we call it Talking MotoGP. It's not Rob talking MotoGP, it's us talking MotoGP. Stephen Berry, love it. Brad Binder, fire. SA Flag, fire. SA Flag, fire. Absolutely love it. Daryl, Ray, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned to the Motor Rider World Facebook page. If you want to watch this all the way back, it's going to be loaded on our YouTube channel now. Watch my paddock talk, where I talk a little bit about the riders, who's going where in MotoGP and World Superbikes. Make sure you click and have a read through our digital magazine. Hit the like button. We need likes. That's how we can make money. Hit the like button, so we can do this more often. Until next time, have a great week further. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all the best. Goodbye, and thank you.